All right, good morning, good evening, and hello everyone. My name is Payal Tandon, and I will be your host today in this webinar in which we're going to talk a lot about verb-ing modifiers. So let's just make sure that everyone can hear me loud and clear at your end. I would really appreciate if you could just acknowledge that my voice is clear, no problems with that. All right, hello to see you all here, JE, Vignesh, Lack Tutor. Okay, so let's get started here. I haven't received very many yeses that you can hear me clearly, so I'm assuming that you can hear me clearly. All right, so I've started to share my screen. What we are going to talk about here is that various ways in which GMAT tests verb-ing modifiers. That's what we're going to talk about in this session. Vijay, hello. Sri Charan, hello. Appy 912. Really good to good to hear that. Yeah, I know you must have heard my voice on EGMAT. So good. It's always nice to put voice to faces. So welcome. Okay, so the first and the foremost thing that we're going to do is make sure that you have the correct understanding of verb-ing modifiers from conceptual standpoint. So we're going to talk about your conceptual understanding. Okay, so how many of you over here feel comfortable with verb-ing modifiers as they pertain from the conceptual understanding standpoint? So tell me so basically what I would say is rate your level of understanding from, and let me just get the right, 100% understanding, between 100% and 99% understanding, between 51 and 75% understanding, less than 51% understanding. So tell me which one applies to you. And then I'm going to create a counter here. Because if you guys don't have proper conceptual understanding, I'll have to spend a bit of time in explaining to you certain concepts before I go into the application. Because again, the key to acing any type of question on the GMAT is, first of all, conceptual understanding, and then your application, or what we also call as process skills. Okay, so we need to make sure that your concepts are sound, and then we'll focus on the application, because originally the intent of this session was really on the application part. So let's see. 75. Okay, so quite a few of you. Okay, almost everyone over here who has responded has between 75 and 99% understanding. There's one person less than 51%. Okay, so what I'll do is, just for the sake of making sure that everyone is at the same page, what I'm going to do is just going to give you a broad understanding of what verb-ing modifiers can and cannot modify. Okay, so verb-ing modifiers, very versatile modifiers. They can modify nouns, they can modify actions. So both the entities can be modified by a verb-ing modifier. When it comes to modifying actions, they can describe the actions by providing a generic description of the action, or by explicitly stating how that action is performed. Okay, so these two, by the generic description and the how part of it, fall under the description of the action standpoint. Okay, and then the second way in which a verb-ing modifier can modify an action is by presenting a result. So if you think about it, the how part and the result part, they're very specific ways in which the verb-ing modifiers work, and then generic description is really generic, as the word states. Okay, so again, these are at a very high level, this is how verb-ing modifiers work. Okay, now if you are not an EGMAT student, I would highly recommend that you sign in to the EGMAT free trial and look at the verb-ing modifiers part 1 file, so that you get this overall understanding of how verb-ing modifiers work. Okay, all right, so now let's move on to the next part here. And here I've just given you certain examples, and these are screenshots from our concept file. So I would strongly recommend that you go through these files, the file which I mentioned over here in the free trial. You go through this file to get that solid understanding, because ideally I would want all of you to be in this more than 100% range of conceptual understanding. Okay, that's very, very important. So I would strongly urge all of you to go through at least the file that's available to you free of charge. Students who are it's GMAT students, they should definitely go through the entire modifiers block, which I'll talk about later on in this session. Okay, now here are certain examples showing how verb-ing modifiers modify nouns. Wearing a black shirt, this is a verb-ing modifier. Joe played with the puppy. So here, wearing a black shirt, it modifies Joe. Okay, how so what is Joe? So Joe is wearing a black shirt. It's simply describing Joe. Okay, likewise, Joe wearing a black shirt. So all we have done over here is change the positioning of this modifier. We have made it appear after the subject that it modifies, and it's encapsulated within this comma pair. Okay, so no big deal. It's just showing that you don't really have to place the modifier before or necessarily after the subject. It can be placed anywhere in the close proximity of the modified entity. Okay. Now here, example number 3, pretty interesting. We've changed the context of the modifier. Now, wearing a black collar, and obviously wearing a black collar cannot modify Joe, right? You won't say wearing a black collar, Joe played with the puppy. I mean, it won't make sense because collar associates more with the puppy, right? So again, Joe played with the puppy, wearing a black collar. There is no comma separating the puppy and the noun that's being described and the verb-ing modifier. It's a noun modifier here. Okay, so again, the key thing for all modifiers, regardless of whether they are verb-ing modifiers, verb-ed modifiers, right, or relative pronoun modifier, is that they should make sense with the modified entity, they should be placed correctly, and they should not bring any ambiguity whatsoever. Okay, all right. So that's at a very high level, giving you a brief snapshot of certain examples in which modifiers modify, verb-ing modifiers modify nouns. Now here you have verb-ing modifiers modifying actions. And I'm just going to read through these examples real quick just to make sure that all of you are on the same page. And now we talked about three aspects of it, right? How do these modifiers modify actions? The first one was generic description. So let's take a look at this. Amy skipped school giving the excuse of stomachache. That's a very generic description, right? I mean, she gave the excuse of stomachache, and that's how she basically skipped school. The startup closed all its operations, citing political instability as the primary reason. So again, this is describing about the closing action of the startup. Okay, all right. Now the how aspect, arranging rare exotic flowers in a symmetric pattern, Mary made a beautiful bouquet. How did she make this beautiful bouquet? By arranging rare exotic flowers in a symmetric pattern, right? Now, likewise, singing a beautiful song, Sam mesmerized everyone in the room. How did Sam mesmerize everyone in the room? By singing a beautiful song. So again, by whenever it's expressing the how aspect, you can always frame your question in this manner. Mary made a beautiful bouquet. How did she do that? By arranging rare exotic flowers. Okay, now let's come to the result. Mary made a beautiful bouquet, winning accolades from everyone. Now here, winning accolades is presenting the result. She made a beautiful bouquet, and that led her to win accolades from everyone. Okay, so again, the common theme remains the same. There is no ambiguity in the meaning. The actions are typically presented in a sequence. You get the cause first and then the result, right? And then the sentence structure that's typically followed is that you have the comma plus verb-ing. You typically have a comma that precedes the verb-ing modifier. Okay, all right. Now let's come to the application aspect of it. So I hope that everyone got a good flavor of what these verb-ing modifiers are. So now let's take a look at the application of it. So now what we're going to do is I'm going to give you questions that you're going to solve. You're going to take about a minute and a half. And when I give you the go ahead, you can post your responses over here. And then we're going to discuss these questions. And again, these questions are not uber difficult. I purposely kept this session a little bit easy because again, the main point of this session is to make sure that you understand how to apply these verb-ing modifiers, your knowledge of verb-ing modifiers. Okay, I'm not really testing you on whether you can solve difficult questions correctly or not. I'm really testing you on, given the conceptual understanding that you have, can you can you figure out what the correct usage of verb-ing modifiers is, or what the correct usage of that verb form is? Okay, and again, a question, if you understand, a question can be made difficult by removing certain errors, by making the sentence structure more complicated, right? So again, we are not going into, we won't be delving into those aspects. Our primary focus is going to be verb-ing modifiers. How do you take this conceptual understanding and apply that understanding in the context of SC questions? Okay, all right. So at a very high level, as I said, modifier, I'm going to repeat myself because this is the common theme that I want to make sure that you understand. Modifier should make sense with the modified entity, should be placed correctly, should not be ambiguous. Okay. Now, how do you figure out, I mean, you know the conceptual rules, but how do you figure out what should the modifier modify? Okay, how should you, I mean, the first part over here is makes sense, right? So how do you figure this out, whether it makes sense or not? Which brings us to the most important thing about SC. It is the context, or what we call as the meaning. Okay, you may know all the grammatical constructions, but if you don't focus on the meaning part, you are going to falter big time. Okay, and that is what we're going to make sure that you start to do, if you're not already doing, and you start to do that with that razor sharp focus. Okay, so focus on understanding the meaning of the sentence. Okay, so I cannot emphasize anymore on this. This is something which I make sure that each and every student whom I interact with, either through my lessons or through these sessions, I make sure that they focus on the meaning and not just go on to the answer choices by looking at the similarities, dissimilarities. Okay, all right, so now question one, easy question. Official guide question, official guide verbal review 2020. But again, the idea is not whether you get to the correct answer or not, or how long you take. The idea is whether you are able to absorb all the aspects that you needed to absorb in order to solve this question. Okay, so here's the question. Go ahead, solve it. And okay, sorry, I need to share my screen. Here's the question. So go ahead and solve it, and I will be back. Sorry, thank you, Arun, for letting me know that I was muted. Sorry about that. All right, so the correct answer here is choice C. Almost everyone selected choice C as actually everyone who put in the responses selected choice C as the correct answer. So really great. I think I should be back. I'm just going to wait for a couple of seconds for it to stabilize because I have put myself off of mute now. I'm unmuted now. Okay, so everyone can hear me now? Okay, perfect. Perfect. Thank you, Arun. All right, so the correct answer here is choice C. Okay, let's quickly understand why was this, why did I choose this question? Okay, in 1974, a large area of the surface of Mercury, so a large area where on the surface of Mercury was photographed. It was photographed from varying distances, okay, which revealed a degree of cratering similar to that of the moon's. Now, tell me what is wrong with this construction. So essentially, from the meaning standpoint, it's relatively straightforward. You know, there was a large area that was photographed, and what revealed a degree of cratering. So what did that reveal? So what revealed a degree of cratering that was similar to that of the moon? Which refers to the nearest noun, which doesn't make sense in this case, right? Which always refers to the nearest noun. In this case, it refers to distances, and that doesn't make sense, right? But what do you think logically? What revealed a degree of cratering? As per the statement, yes, you're absolutely right. It's modifying distances. But logically, what should which modify? Because again, whenever we are understanding the meaning of the sentence, we have to understand what the logical meaning of the sentence is. Logically, what it should modify is the fact that this large area was photographed. Okay, the fact that this action of photographing, absolutely right, Pri, Shamik, and Sneha. The action of photographing is what revealed a degree of cratering. Okay. And when that is the case, the act of photography, absolutely right, Appy. When that is the case, what should be utilized here to communicate? A verb-ing modifier should be utilized. Okay. So logically, you know that it was the act of photography that revealed this thing, which means that you need to utilize verb-ing modifier to modify this action. Okay, what is this action? This action is that this thing was photographed. Okay, now choice A is wrong, as you could figure out. Choice B, why is choice B wrong? A large area of the surface of Mercury was photographed from varying distances to reveal a degree of cratering. Is that logical? To reveal, is that logical? Vipul is asking if it would be that instead of which, would it be correct? Vipul, you need to answer that question on your own. Is that an action modifier? Can that modify the action or the act of photography? Right? It cannot. So that's the reason why even that is not going to be correct, because that's a noun modifier. Okay. Yes. Choice B, coming back to choice B, Shamik is right. There is no intention here. Okay. Grammatically, is there anything wrong with the usage of to reveal? Grammatically, it's fine, right? I mean, intent could be to reveal, but again, that's not what the author wants to state. There was no, the area was not photographed with an intent. You didn't, the scientists didn't already know that that this cratering is of the same degree as the moon, right? So their intent wasn't that, right? So that's the reason why choice B is wrong. Okay. Now, there is another error over here as well, a degree of cratering to the moon. Okay, this is not parallel, right? The degree of cratering is not similar to the moon, and that's why this choice is wrong for another reason as well. Shamik, comma plus infinitive, there is okay, to reveal, absolutely right. So there is that comma issue as well. You're right, Shamik. Yes, there is this comma here also, which is incorrect here. Okay, so yes. But again, at a very high level, to reveal is wrong because of the meaning issue. Okay. Now, revealing a degree of cratering similar to that of the moon. So this is absolutely correct here. Revealing is absolutely correct. It's presenting a result. Okay. Now let's talk about choice D. Why is choice D wrong? And revealed. What's wrong with this part over here? Or do you think this part is correct? Talk about choice D. And again, even though most of you got to the correct answer, we absolutely have to go through each and every answer choice to make sure that you rejected each choice on solid ground so that you learned the maximum from this question. So now tell me choice D and revealed, what is wrong with that? If at all there is anything wrong. Separates the action. And what's wrong with that? Tie is wrong, yes. Parallel with photographed. What's wrong with that? A large area of surface of Mercury was photographed and revealed, that large area revealed cratering similar, yeah. Absolutely. Essentially, what it's saying is that the actions of was photographed and revealed, they are not linked together. They are independent actions. And that's the reason why choice D is wrong. Okay. Now, there is no intention here, Pre. The thing is that these two actions are independent. A large area was photographed, a large area revealed, cratering similar in degree to the moon. So there's no linkage between the two actions. And that's why choice D is wrong. Another reason why choice D is wrong is, again, there is an incorrect comparison over here. Okay. So this is not parallel here. Okay. All right. That revealed cratering, again, that is wrong here for the same reason as choice A. Okay. So overall, again, if you want to go through the detailed solution, here you can see I'm going to be sharing the PDF with you towards the end of the session. This is how each and every solution in the EGMAT platform, whether it's official question, whether it's EGMAT question, each and every solution has this level of detail. Okay. So definitely go through this to make sure that you haven't missed anything. Okay. So choice choice C is correct. Choice D was wrong over here, as we talked about. There's no intended cause and effect. The intended cause and effect has not been expressed. And again, choice E is wrong. So overall, if you think about it, we really needed to understand the relationship in the sentence. Revealed is the result of was photographed, and hence it cannot be expressed as an independent action. Okay, so as such, grammatically, there was nothing wrong with this, right? You could utilize this as a grammatical construction, but over here, the correct intent was to express this as a related action as a result. And that's the reason why you always have to understand the context. You always have to focus on understanding the meaning of the sentence. Okay. Now, one more thing that I want to talk about before I move on to the next question is that we have Shraddha Jaiswal as well over here in the audience. So, so again, she can respond to any questions that you may have that I may not be able to respond to in this session because it might disrupt the flow. Okay. All right. So Shraddha is our resident SC expert, and I believe all the EGMAT students would know her as well as people on GMAT Club. All right. Let's talk about question number 2. We are increasing the difficulty level a little bit here. Official Guide 2020. Here's the question. Go ahead and solve this question, and I'll be back. All right, let's start. The votes have started to come in. So I'm going to do the tally here. Sorry. C, A, D. What else? One more A. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Did I miss something? One more C. Another A. Interesting. Another D. B. Good. I like that when there is a split because that means there's people are confused about multiple things, right? or maybe they're confused about the same thing, but they end up, their actions may be selecting different choices. So let's see what the case over here is. Okay, let's get some more here. B is starting to be a front runner here. Another B. Another C. Okay, I'm going to get, let's wait for 3 more responses and then there's parallelism, yes. Another one for A. Let's get 2 more. Okay, I'm going to start now. I won't tell what the correct answer is, okay? But I'm going to solve this question by using the 3-step process, okay? About 5 million acres in the United States have been invaded by leafy spurge. Okay, so this much area this much area has been invaded by leafy spurge, a herbaceous plant from Eurasia, okay, with milky sap. So basically, this big chunk of land has been invaded by this leafy spurge, and I can kind of figure out that, okay, we're talking about a weed here, unwanted. Invaded by this means it's unwanted, it's not something that was planned, okay. Invaded by leafy spurge, a herbaceous. Now this part is describing what this leafy spurge is, a herbaceous plant from Eurasia with milky sap. Now what has milky sap? Does Eurasia have milky sap? No, it's the herbaceous plant that has this milky sap. Okay, that's a logical thing. And again, over here, with milky sap is modifying the plant and not Eurasia. So again, you have to always go by the context and not simply by that with needs to modify the closest modifier, the closest noun entity. So again, somebody asked me that question about how do prepositions work. They all work the same way. You have to understand the context. It should make sense. It should not create any ambiguity. Now, in this case, there is no ambiguity that with milky sap could modify Eurasia. There is no ambiguity whatsoever. Okay, so let's come back. A herbaceous plant from Eurasia with milky sap that gives. Now, what gives? This milky sap in this plant gives mouth sores to cattle. Oh, that's painful. So it gives mouth sores to cattle, displacing grasses and other cattle food. So it gives mouth sores and displacing grasses and other cattle food and rendering the range land worthless. Okay, so it seems as if the sentence, what it implies is that this milky sap gives these mouth sores. Okay, and this leads to displacing grasses because of these mouth sores. The grasses and the other cattle food is displaced, and this thing also renders the rangeland worthless. Okay, now what's wrong with this whole scenario here? What's wrong with what I have written on the screen? Or do you think it's correct? What I've done is whatever the sentence is saying, I've simply transcribed that into form that I can easily understand. That it gives mouth sores, the milky sap gives mouth sores to the cattle, and that leads to displacing grasses and also rendering the rangeland worthless. So what's wrong with this? Is it logical? Yes or no? Now, is this logical? Whatever I've written, is that logical? No, absolutely not. The mouth sores don't lead to displacing grasses. Absolutely right. It doesn't make sense. So this is absolutely illogical. This is absolutely illogical. Now, what could make logical sense? Now, whenever you are reading, so again, people who selected choice A, and quite a few of you selected choice A. I think there was another vote here as well. Okay, so towards the end. So you need to understand as to what the original choice is saying, and you need to question, does this make sense? Okay. Now, from grammatical standpoint, is there anything wrong in this sentence? From grammatical standpoint, is there anything that you can point your finger to and say, this is not right? There isn't much. At least it doesn't come on my radar. Okay. So again, you have to go by the context. That is the most important thing. And you need to always question, does this make sense? Okay. And if it doesn't make sense, you need to infer. If it doesn't make sense, no, you need to infer what will make sense. What is logical? You always have to figure that out. Okay. If it doesn't make sense. So this is really your decision box here. Does this make sense? First, you understand what the author is saying. Then you ask it, does this make sense? If it doesn't make sense, what is actually logical? Now let's talk about what is indeed logical. Okay. Sorry about that. Okay. Now, what makes logical sense? Kana, it is what we are talking about is actually related to parallelism only. Right now, these two, another way to think about this is that these two things don't make sense together in a list. Displacing grasses and rendering rangeland worthless, they are not really linked together. They are not at the same level in the list. Essentially, what the author intended to say was that it gives mouth source, it gives the source, okay? It displaces the grasses. So it basically bothers the cattle by giving them mouth sores. It displaces cattle food. And this action of displacement renders the rangeland worthless. That is what the intended meaning was. And that is what the logical sense is. And you need to figure that out before you move on to reviewing the answer choices. And in this case, majority of you did not figure this out. Is that correct? Yes or no? Majority of you did not figure this out, and that's the reason why you ended up selecting incorrect answer choice. Tell me, who all did not figure this intended meaning out before looking at the answer choices? Because this is going to be one of the biggest learnings in this session. Thank you, Shraddha, for chiming in. A parallel list must also be logical. Just grammatical parallelism is not enough. Okay. So, Dev, you're right. Good that you acknowledge that you did not figure that out. Okay. Yeah, and Dev, you did exactly what Shraddha has stated is not correct, right? That you shouldn't really be focusing just on the grammatical parallelism, right? So, okay, good. I'm glad. Now, let's, again, this is a detailed meaning analysis. Definitely take a look at that. And again, this is where we explain the errors. And again, this is a text-based solution. I want you to look at the level of detail, because this is the level of detail that you absolutely need in order to make sure that you are doing appropriate strategic review of each and every question that you solve. Okay. So again, over here, what we've done is we've explained the modifier displacing. Does it explain the how aspect? Does it explain the result? And again, it doesn't do either, and that's why this is incorrect. Okay. Now, choice B is the correct answer here. So now, what's happening in choice B? Look at this. Displaces grasses, rendering. This is what we said, because displaces results in rendering. Okay. Now, one thing that I want you to focus on is invaded by leafy spurge. That gives. Now, what does that give modify? That gives modifies the leafy spurge. Okay. Now, you might question that, okay, that gives actually modified milky sap according to the original sentence, right? But now it's modifying leafy spurge, so there is a change in meaning. But I want to make sure that you understand there is no change in meaning whatsoever, because ultimately it's the leafy spurge that has this milky sap that gives the mouth source to cattle, right? So whether that modifies leafy spurge or milky sap, it really doesn't matter from the intended meaning standpoint of from the standpoint of the intended meaning of this sentence. Okay, it communicates all the aspects of the meaning that the author intended to communicate. Is this point clear? Because I don't want you to reject an answer choice based on a baseless reason. Okay. Ma'am, why with milky sap and not having milky sap? Again, you could use having milky sap as well. There is nothing wrong with that. Okay, but in this case, there is other stuff which is correct. I mean, there is a choice about having milky sap as well, and in that case, having is not wrong at all. But that choice is wrong because of some other reasons. Okay, all right. Now let's take a look at choice C. So everyone understands that choice B is the correct one, right? Now let's take a look at choice B. Choice C has having milky sap, and there is nothing wrong with that. But here, the problem is that again you have the issue over here. Okay, let's see. Displacing. Okay. What now this sentence is saying is that a leafy spurge having milky sap and displacing grasses. So displacing grasses, having milky sap provides the description, right? It provides the description of the of the leafy spurge. Now displacing grasses should also provide description, right? If it is to be part of the same list, it needs to have the same role as having milky sap, but it doesn't make sense that displacing grasses provide a characteristic of leafy spurge, and that's the reason why this choice is wrong. Now, Bijay, you're saying that we should avoid having, there's no such rule like that. There, again, you have to, these are all misconceptions, okay? I could create a correct choice that has having in it, okay? Again, you need to always understand whenever you're rejecting a choice, what is the reason to reject the choice, okay? And do not reject choices just based on these apparent quote unquote rules, okay? That's what I'm going to say, all right? So having and displacing, the logical reason to reject this choice is that having and displacing should technically, they're part of the same list, right? They should serve the same role, but they are not serving the same role, and that's the reason why this choice is wrong, okay? All right, so, all right. Choice D, quite a few of you selected choice D as well. Choice D is wrong. Let's look at why. Gives mouth sores, displaces grasses. So here we are okay. And renders. Oh, actually, no. Sorry, we are not okay here. Herbaceous plant from Eurasia with milky sap that gives mouth sores, displaces grasses. So over here, we need to understand the sentence structure over here. The main thing over here is that about 5 million acres in United States having been invaded, displaced. So having been invaded. So basically these 5 million acres, there is no verb for the subject. Okay, because this part over here, have been invaded, has been converted into a modifier, having been invaded. Okay. And then all of this displaces, renders, these all modify this part over here with milky sap, and again it doesn't make sense that the milky sap displaces, and that's not correct. Okay, all right, so this action and this action do not make sense with milky sap, and that's another reason why this choice is wrong. Okay. Is there a rule for having been? It acts like had, verb ed, sort of, that it needs a sequence as well to work. You're right, Div, and that's not a rule. That's actually from logical standpoint. Having studied for so long, Tom was able to score something, right? So I mean, it's just logically that's how the construction works. So yes, having been invaded, you do expect something else to have happened after this action happened, right? That's how verb tenses work. Okay, all right. Now, Apeksha is saying, so I hope, Div, that answers your question. Apeksha is saying, since the underlying portion is lengthy in this question, how do you do horizontal reading, or what do you do first, or what do you spot first to eliminate? Apeksha, I don't do any horizontal reading of answer choices. The first and the foremost thing to do, as we did over here, was you read the original sentence in its entirety to understand its meaning. Okay, so that's the most important thing. Okay, that's what we did. We understood the meaning. We figured out, okay, I'm going back. We figured out what the author is saying, whether it's making sense, and if it's not making sense, what is logical. Okay, so you need to do all of those steps, and once you do those steps, then you go through each and every answer, each and every choice one by one. You figure out a solid reason to reject that choice. Okay. Ashish, no, today is not a math class. Today is Verb-ing SC class. Okay, so we are done with choice D. Choice E, nobody selected choice E. So again, you have this, go through it at your own convenience. So again, you need to understand the relationship in the sentence. The relationship that's there in the sentence is that the leafy spurge gives it displaces, and this leads to rendering, okay, of the grassland worthless. But grammatically, any of these could work. You could say leafy spurge gives, displaces, renders, or you could say leafy spurge gives, and these two lead to displacing and rendering, right? But the key thing over here is you need to understand the meaning of the sentence in order to figure out what is the correct relationship, okay? In the absence of that step, no matter how good your conceptual knowledge is, you will not be able to solve essay questions correctly, okay? Does that rule of removing sentence between two comma always work? Himanshu, I don't believe in removing stuff, okay, because when you remove stuff, you kind of lose context of that stuff. But what we teach at EGMAT is the skill of strategically pausing to understand the meaning of the sentence. And that's what we teach in our master comprehension course. That's what each and every solution is based off of. So if you look at this, the detailed meaning analysis over here, what we have done is we have split the sentence into its smaller chunks. And as we are splitting the sentence into its smaller chunks, we are understanding the meaning of each and every small chunk. And we are taking that meaning with us as we are proceeding to the remaining parts of the sentence. And then towards the end, we are summarizing the whole thing, what the logical meaning is, what the illogical meaning is. Okay? Thank you, Shraddha. Every word in the sentence has a purpose. So we don't really recommend removing a certain part because you then lose context. Okay, so thank you for asking that question, Himanshu. All right, so now we are at our third question, and it's about 8:40 right now. What I want to do is, we've done two questions. I want you to tell me what your learnings are. And as you type in your learnings, I also want to make sure that you hit the like button of this video to tell me that you are learning something from this session. Okay, so I want to see that. Right now there are about 4 likes. Let's get that number to at least 30. There are about 47 of you watching right now. So let's increase that number to, let's say, 47. All of you, I hope that all of you are gaining something or the other from this session. Because that's very important to me. Why? Because that tells me that the time that I'm spending with you, it's being constructive for you. Thank you, Ashish. I really appreciate that. Let's take a look at what Shamik is saying. If any option changes a meaning from the original, incorrect answer can be rejected. Shamik, very good question. So what I would say is if any choice changes the logical meaning of the original choice, okay, logical meaning, that's very important. Okay. Now, for example, in this question, choice A communicated an illogical meaning. So you actually have to change that. Okay. So again, the key thing over here is if the choice changes the logical intended meaning, then that's an incorrect choice. Okay. Okay. Thank you, Shraddha. Anurag is saying, I learned how to pay more attention to meaning than grammar. I really appreciate that. That really makes my day really good. Thank you. All right, so I'm just about to 22 likes. Okay, so there's still 46 people here. So let's see if I can get those people also to like probably after the end of question number 3. Okay, so I think I had planned to do a total of, I think, 4 questions, but I think we'll be able to do just 3 given how much time is left. All right, so here's the question. Again, very interesting question. Let's focus on all the aspects and then we essentially go ahead and solve this question. All right, let's start to put in the answers here. Log in the answers, taking advantage. Sorry. One. So almost everyone has selected choice B. Okay. There's one person who selected choice C. Okay. All right. So let's quickly go through it. And again, this question also exemplifies the same thing. You need to understand the context of the sentence to figure out what's going on. Now, how many of you consciously focused on that? How many of you consciously focused on understanding what the author intends to say, or whether what the author is saying is logical or not? Good, Anurag, very nice. Appy tried, okay. Sneha also, Arun also. Arun has selected choice A. Okay, Arun, I need to discuss this thing with you. Okay. All right. Let's go through it. Was not able to comprehend this one, to be honest. Okay, all right. Let's look at this. As envisioned by researchers, commercial farming of lobsters. So something commercial farming of lobsters will enable fisheries to do something. Whenever you see enable, you know that there is something that you'll see something with regards to, right? Will enable fisheries to do. The meaning-based method enables students to answer questions accurately, to answer difficult questions accurately, right? So to sell, that's the first one, to sell the shellfish year-round, taking advantage of off-season demand. Now look at this word, taking advantage. Now, okay, so what we're going to do is this commercial farming, so let's write this down. Commercial farming, CF, will enable, let's start to write this down, will enable fisheries to sell shellfish year-round, taking advantage. Now this is what taking advantage is, a verb-ing modifier, so you know that it's going to present a result or describe. Okay, taking advantage of off-season demand, standardize its sizes. Now you're not quite sure about what the role of standardize is. Its sizes, and to predict. And then you have and to predict the sales volume. So here there's a question mark, and to predict sales volume in advance. Okay. Now the key thing over here is you have to understand what the linkage is between this 1, 2, 3, 4, these 4 entities, and this 5th one as well. So there are five different verb-like words here. Okay, I'm going to call them verb-like words here. Verb-like words. Okay, and we need to figure out their linkages, the interlinkages between them. Okay, this one is a verb here. Okay, sorry. Okay, 1 second. Okay, so this one is a verb here. This one is a to verb. This one is another verb but without any will, and this one is a to verb, and this is a verb ing, right? So you have 3 different forms of verb, right? Now, let's take a look at what could be the logical linkage here. The will enable fisheries to sell. Now, to sell shellfish year-round and taking advantage of off-season demand, what is the linkage between these two? It's obvious that taking advantage is a result of, so taking advantage to sell and then taking advantage is a result of being enabled to sell shellfish. Okay, that's logical. So this part is absolutely logical here. Okay, now standardize its sizes and colors. Now standardize its sizes and color, has that got anything to do with taking advantage of off-season demand? No. Has it got anything to do with the thing of to sell? No. Essentially, the commercial farming will enable fisheries to standardize. So over here, this should be to standardize and to predict. So essentially will enable to sell, will enable to standardize, will enable to predict. These are 3 different things that the commercial farming will enable fisheries to do. Okay, that is what the intended meaning of the sentence is. How many of you got that intended meaning? Okay, how many of you got that intended meaning? I know majority of you selected the correct choice, but how many of you had this level of clarity before you moved on to the answer choices? So good, Anurag, good, Himanshu, Good, Bijay. Good, Sneha. Very nice. So I want all of you to have this level of clarity before you go into the answer choices. Okay. So lack tutor, good. Nam also got it. Appy, you didn't get it, but I hope that you get it now. Again, it just requires a little bit more focus from your side. Okay. And again, this is what you're going to learn in the GMAT course. How do you break the sentence down into its smaller chunks? Okay. How do you break it down into a sentence structure? How do you figure out, how do you question what makes sense, right? So you need to be able to do that, and that's something which we teach you in the GMAT course. Okay, Vipul, you got it somewhat. Again, this is a skill that you need to build. So I want you to take this as a feedback from this session, that you really need to work on building this skill. Okay, all right. So over here, choice B is the correct answer. Let's look at choice C and look at how GMAT actually creates incorrect answer choices, taking advantage of off-season demand standardizing. Okay, so it's essentially means that standardizing is a result of taking advantage. That's not correct, right? Oh, sorry, it's a result of taking advantage. That's not correct. Okay, take advantage of off-season. Now here, this part is incorrect because it's breaking the relationship. Okay, the relationship was taking advantage, so the causal effect, the cause and effect is actually broken over here. Okay, standardizing. Now here, this is incorrect cause effect, incorrect cause effect. Okay, now again, from grammatical standpoint, is there anything wrong in any of the answer choices? Now, yes, you could argue that, okay, in this one, there is a comma, maybe punctuation issues. But again, punctuations are not things which you look at first thing off the bat. Okay, so again, from grammatical standpoint, there isn't much wrong in any of the incorrect answer choices. The key thing over here is really you not being able to get the context, and that's why you may end up making mistakes. Okay, so again, focus on context. This is what is the most important thing. Now, what should be the max time for solving such types of questions? Again, Himanshu, the timing aspect should come in later. That's your test readiness. The first step is to make sure that without any timing pressure, you're able to build your process skills. The process skill of how do you do strategic pausing? What do I mean by strategic pausing? By strategic pausing, what I mean is that you read the sentence to understand, you break the sentence down into its structure, and you understand the meaning of each and every structure. That's reading the sentence through strategic pausing. The second thing, understanding all the aspects of the meaning. Are you able to understand all the aspects? Are you able to question whether the aspects as stated, they are logical or not? Are you able to infer the intended meaning or not, right? So those are process skills that you need to build. As you build those process skills, as you build your conceptual understanding, timing is going to fall in place. Okay, and then you start working on the test readiness aspect of it, wherein you based on your tuck time, based on your timing strategies for the exam, based on your ability level in each of the three subsections of verbal, you figure out, okay, my accuracy improves if I spend, let's say, 1 minute and 45 seconds on a typical SC question. Or for somebody else, it could not, maybe the accuracy remains high even if that person spends just about 1 minute. So that's a very personal tweaking that you have to do based on your developed skill set. So I hope that answers your question, Bijay and Himanshu. Okay, so Bijay, again, if it's taking more than 2 minutes, you need to figure out which step are you taking long. Okay, at which step are you spending more time? Okay, and that's why the strategic review of solutions, that's why when you have solutions that are as detailed as the solutions that you see in the GMAT platform, you will be able to tell, okay, I was not able to figure this part, and so this is where I actually faltered. I wasn't able to infer the logical meaning. Okay, or maybe you feel that, okay, you weren't able to figure out the that displacing was incorrect, right? So when you review such solutions in detail, that's when you make sure that you understand where you're lacking. Okay, in the case of cause and effect, effect is always in the ing form. Yes, when the verb ing form is used, then the effect is always in the ing form, and that was one of the conceptual things, conceptual clarity points which we have included in the Verb-ing Modifiers Part 1 file. So definitely take a look at that. Okay, that it has to be in a sequence. Okay, you won't have verb ing giving a result, comma, followed by the action. That is not usually the case. Okay, since we need to finish an SC question in less than 60 seconds, again, Suman, that is you're jumping the gun. As I said, test readiness comes later. Okay, so you shouldn't bother about test readiness without first building your ability. Okay, so at GMAT we have 3 different phases of your preparation. Okay, the first one is stage 1, where you are learning the concepts and you don't worry about the time. Okay, this one is just learn concepts and methods. Okay, stage 2 is where you cement. What do I mean by cement? You cement the methods. You do this utilizing the questions that you have in Scholaranium. Okay, you cement your methods means that you fine tune which kind of questions are you taking more time on, which steps in those kinds of questions are you taking more time on. And then in stage 3, once you have built your ability, after stage 1, your ability increases to about 70%. After stage 2, your ability improves to about 90%. Now in stage 3, you'd work on your test readiness, wherein you figure out what's going to be your timing strategies. Now, as your ability is improving from stage 1 to stage 2 to stage 3, your time to answer questions is also reducing. And it's not a linear thing. It's actually more of a, yeah. So as your ability is improving, it's your time to answer questions is actually coming down. Okay. All right. So, all right. So now let's do a quick recap of the 3 questions, and we are towards the end of our session. If you think about it, in the first question, was photographed revealing? Here, revealing presents the result of was photographed. Okay. In the second one, you have been invaded, gives, displaces. These are 2 actions, and then rendering is the result of displaces. In the third one, you have 3 initiatives here, 3 intents here, and then over here, taking is the result of to sell. Okay, so again, the key thing over here is you have to, from grammatical standpoint, any other structure over here would also have worked. Any other verb-like form would also have worked, but you needed to figure out what makes logical sense. And that's why context is the king here. Okay, so you need to work on your processes. Okay, so I'm going to share the PDF such that you get question number 4, the detailed solution for that as well. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to make it open for an open-ended Q&A. Okay. So again, the key thing is, if you focus on meaning, if you focus on the process, if you focus on the meaning-based approach, you will be able to reject answer choices that you may end up getting confused in if you didn't focus on the meaning-based approach. Okay, Rohit Singh Malan, he scored a V42, 760, and I would urge all of you to look at his interview, because again, it's very important for you to learn from students who have been there, who have done it. Okay, so very, very important. Same thing with Jim, okay, and thousands of other students. Okay, when you get to that 700 level, grammar is not going to be the deciding factor. And that's the reason why in this entire session, I only spent 5 minutes or maybe up 7 minutes going over the concepts. The remaining time I spent on application of those concepts, and that application required me to go through the meaning aspect of it. Okay, the only way you would be able to select the correct answer in fewer than 90 seconds is by understanding the intended meaning. Okay, and understanding the intended meaning requires practice, requires focused practice, and that's why you need to actually build those process skills of strategic pausing, of understanding the meaning, of questioning whether it's logical or not. Now over here, I only have the screenshot of this modifiers part of the course. And what I would recommend all of you as your next steps would be to build your conceptual understanding of Verb-ing modifiers first. And for those who have who are GMAT students, you would have access to all of these components here. But those who are only free trial students, you would be able to get this one over here, Verb-ing modifier. So you will be able to build some level of conceptual understanding utilizing this file over here. You won't have this part 2 available. And then you need to work on application, the stuff that we did in today's session, going over questions. That's what we do in the application file and in the practice files. Okay. So that's what I would recommend here. And now let's open it up for any questions that you may have. All right. So Satyajit, appreciate that. Used GMAT SC earlier, no doubt best course available. Really appreciate your appreciation. So I see about 54 people right now and only 30 likes. So if you've learned something from this session, I would strongly urge you to hit that like button and tell me what your learnings are. Because again, everyone, the 53 of you over here, or 54 of you over here, you would have gained something or the other, some other takeaways. So which again, all of you would be, if you share those takeaways here, everyone over here would get benefited from it. Do we have practice questions other than OG in EGMAT? Absolutely, yes. So we work all of our application files, practice files, all the questions in Scholaranium, they are only EGMAT questions. We use OG questions only in official guide Scholaranium, which is a way to give you official guide practice utilizing all the analytics built into Scholaranium, which is the highest rated test platform on GMAT Cloud. Okay, so yes, all questions in concept files, in practice files, in application files, in Scholaranium, they are all original EGMAT questions. Okay, we don't believe in utilizing official guide content to teach you. No, that's absolutely wrong. Grammar-based is the only way to get higher score. Oh, grammar-based or meaning-based, Nam? I hope you meant to say meaning-based is the only way to get higher score. How much, Anurag is asking, how much time should I spend on this particular topic, considering it's my weak section? You need to ace this topic. Modifiers, parallelism. Again, subject verb, pronouns, verbs, modifiers, parallelism. Very important. They all synchronously work together to build your ability in SC, right? You need to work on all these 5. Idioms, you can kind of just keep them for later. Okay, but modifiers, absolutely, you need to ace that. All right. So any other questions before I say goodbye to you? All right, I don't see very many questions. So good luck, goodbye. And it was really wonderful conducting this webinar. And all right, also, are there live sessions or doubt clearing sessions as well with EGMAT account? Doubt clearing sessions, so we respond to all of your doubts via our very active forums. In fact, you would not even get a doubt because all those doubts would already be addressed on the forums. But in the likelihood that you still have a doubt, we respond to doubts within fewer than 24 hours. So definitely, yeah. As far as live sessions, none right now. We do conduct these weekly webinars on the weekend, so those are really, really good. So I would strongly urge you to attend those. Absolutely. Will you be taking CR lessons too on YouTube? I'm not sure about the schedule, but yes, once we do set up the schedule, we will take up CR sessions as well. Is article of EGMAT about ED and Verb-ing enough for understanding the concept? So it's really up to you. I would say it's not just about, as I have explained, it's not just about conceptual understanding, it's about application. So for application, you really need to enroll in the course so that you get to learn the application the right way, building those process skills. Ultimately, it's your GMAT score that's at stake. It's your admit to that dream school of yours that is at stake. So you really need to figure out what's important, right? And you need to understand what's important to ace the test, right? And then make the right decision. But yes, as far as all our articles are absolutely wonderful quality, they serve the intent that they promise to serve. So Verb-ing, Verb-ed modifiers, you learn the conceptual aspect, absolutely, right? Is OG Scholaranium part of verbal course, or is it extra money for that? No extra money. You get it with your course. Okay. All right. So with that, I'm going to end this session here. Wonderful conducting this session. Good luck. Stay safe. And yeah. Oh, Samarth. Okay. Good to see you after conference at Taj Bangalore. Wow, that was 2 years back. Yes. Yeah. Good to see you here. Yes, Samarth. So good luck for your GMAT. And yes, I will see you on the GMAT platform. All right. Bye-bye.